So I've actually been investing since 2006. I originally started out investing in real estate as just a side hustle. So I was in the corporate world. I'd recently just moved to Toronto from Edmonton, Alberta, and I, very quickly realized that even though I was doing very well in the corporate world, at the end of the day, I was paying my bills and I was barely putting anything away at all for the future. So I was really just kind of covering my day-to-day expenses and all that kind of stuff. And I knew I can continue on this path and I wasn't going to get very far ahead doing what I was doing. So I really did some research and I looked into what I could do outside of the day job, like what kind of a side hustle I could do, and quickly kind of honed in on real estate. So I bought my first duplex in London, Ontario in 2006. And that was the very beginning. And it's just kind of escalated from there. When I started investing, I don't know what you want to call it. I overbit a little bit. I went very aggressive when I first started. And then, very quickly. So I started in 2006. The financial crisis happened in 2008. The market kind of crashed in 2009 in Canada. I had bought from 2006 to 2009 or 2008, I had actually bought, I think it was about 12 houses. And if I could write a book on what to do wrong, I think I could fill it very, very easily. Back in those days, the early 2000s, you could buy 40-year AMs. It started off at 10% down. Then there was an investor program for 5% down, 0% down. I took advantage of it all. And, one of the things was I wasn't working with anybody that had a knowledge of investment properties. I was just working with people that were willing to give me money, the banks directly. The broker I had wasn't a real estate investor focused. She was just a residential real estate mortgage broker. So she was all happy giving me the mortgages. The reasons the market shifted are completely different than this year. It was a completely different world back in 2008, but the shift felt the same. And back in 2008, 2009, I was way over leveraged. I had properties that were barely cash flowing or break even. And then when the market shifted, I ended up at one point, I had, I'll say $2 million worth of mortgages and maybe $1.5 million worth of property. I was way over leveraged to the value of the property. It took me a long time to get out of that. I had to liquidate properties in order to keep paying the bills on the other ones. I was honestly extremely close to going bankrupt. If I didn't have that corporate job, lines of credit and access to credit, I would have gone bankrupt. It was a really tough thing. So it took me almost 5 years to pull myself out of that situation of putting every dollar I had down on these properties. I would come home from work on a Friday afternoon. I would fill my car with all my tools and lawnmower and painting equipment because I couldn't afford to pay a property manager or anybody to do this stuff. I would drive down on Friday to London and I would paint the units, I would clean vacant units, I would cut lawns, I would do whatever I could do to save a few $100s because I needed to, because that $100 was the minimum payment on my line of credit. It was that close. Sleeping on air mattresses in the floor of vacant units. It was a rough situation. So it took me a long time to get out of it. Yeah. But I did end up getting out of it. And it's a great lesson. And it's one of the lessons I talk to newer investors today about making sure your foundation is strong so that you're not over leveraged, because you can't bank on the market always going up. It's great when it does, and that's fantastic, but it's not always going to go up. It's always cyclical and you have to be prepared. From there, I kind of recovered. I'd sold most of my properties. So I went from 12 to 4. And then at that point, I bought some pre-built condominiums in Transit City in Vaughan. And I had worked with a broker who gave me pre-approvals. So no problem, I'm pre-approving you on this. I had the paperwork. I went in and I bought these properties. Then when I got closer to close, we realized it was going to be very difficult to close on these. And he didn't do his due diligence. He basically wrote me these letters from banks who were not willing to close. And that's actually when I met Dahlia. So I did meet Dahlia, and I remember my first meeting with Dahlia. It wasn't even virtual because Zoom wasn't a big thing back then. It was on the phone. But we went through like a strategy session together, and she asked questions that no one had ever asked me, like about my goals, what I was trying to accomplish, where I was going, how I was going to do it. Not just like provide me your T4 and a letter of employment. Like we really worked together on a strategy of where I was going. She was able to finance I bought 3 pre-built condominiums. She was able to finance those 3. And that was the beginning of our relationship. And I think that is definitely one of the things that does set Dahlia apart is, and the Streetwise group as a whole, is they look to understand your needs and your future and not just trying to finance the property today. And that's been a big thing working with Dahlia.